Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Coping. And today we're launching a new series on self-compassion. And we'll be highlighting the values of this practice the next couple episodes.
Yeah, there are a lot of misunderstandings out there about self-compassion. I, too, was one of those who doubted the use of self-compassion and viewed it just as feeling sorry for yourself or something that might make you weak, thinking that self-compassion would make me less productive. What about you, Kathy? What was your view on self-compassion?
Yeah, I think when I started looking at this topic about 8 years ago, I didn't know the depth of the work that's necessary and all of the practices around self-compassion, how it actually helps us become more connected, stronger, and more resilient. And so today we're going to walk through the 4 big myths surrounding self-compassion and discover the power of self-compassion.
Let's get started.
So our first myth is self-compassion is just feeling sorry for myself. What do you think about that, Kevin? Did you used to think that self-compassion was just feeling sorry for yourself?
I did. It's easy to think that self-compassion is like self-pity, that I feel for myself, that I feel bad when things are going bad. I now know that that's not true. The reality is that feeling sorry for yourself or self-pity is actually self-focused, like asking the questions like, why me? And focusing on the things that are going wrong. Whereas self-compassion is something entirely different.
Yes, self-compassion actually reminds us that we're part of a shared human experience and that everyone struggles and we're all part of this universe where everyone is struggling with something. And so it actually shifts our perspective and helps us feel connected rather than isolated.
That's right. Whenever we're feeling sorry for ourselves, it actually makes us feel more isolated and disconnected from other people. When in reality, what we actually need is deeper connection. And so self-compassion allows us to nurture that part of us that is hurting and recognizes the need to reach out for support and for help and connection. And so when we are going through something really challenging in our life, recognizing that pain and acknowledging it, and then asking ourselves, what is it that I need right now? What would help to nurture my spirit in this challenging experience that I'm going through is going to be the thing that helps us to heal.
Yes, exactly. And so we want to also acknowledge that the person that's done the greatest amount of work on this is Kristin Neff. And she has the best resources. We have taken a compilation of her myths on her website and are summarizing them today and paraphrasing them. And here's her quote that she says about this first myth. Self-compassion frames the experience of imperfection in light of the shared human experience.
It's such an important quote, right? Because it allows us to shift from isolation to connection. When we allow ourselves to frame that human experience that we're having, which includes the highs and the lows, we allow the imperfections to have a light shined on them. And that's what draws us to others who are having that same human experience. That connection is so important. And that leads us well into our next myth here. The next myth is self-compassion will make me weak and unmotivated. What do you think about this one?
I would say that I used to believe this myth because I would also always think if I'm not beating myself up, then how am I going to get anything done? How am I going to actually change? How am I going to feel motivated? I need to be a martyr. I need to just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And if I take a pause to take care of me, then I'm going to break down and have an actual breakdown.
Exactly. And I know you mentioned Kristin Neff and her research. Can you speak a little bit to what the research says on this?
Yeah, the research actually shows it's the exact opposite. So being harsh with ourselves doesn't make us tougher. It
Mm,
actually wears you down. And that's
mm,
been my experience personally as well.
exactly.
And so when you're compassionate with yourself, you
Hmm.
build resilience and strength to face all of the daily struggles and battles.
That's right. Yeah, self-compassion is a really hard practice. Obviously, we're talking about it today, and certainly easier said than done. But like any practice, the more you turn back to it, the more you attempt the practice, the more it becomes a habit. I don't think it ever gets easier, but there is a history of seeing when self-compassion actually gives us the energy and the support that we need. And I really appreciate Kristin Neff's quote here related to being harsh with yourself and self compassion. She says, "The supportive stance of self compassion provides strength to face the battles of life." And I would also extend that to say the strength that we need from the strength that we get from self-compassion helps us to fight the external battles, but also the internal battles as well. I've been engaged in some therapy that utilizes internal family systems and self-compassion as a tool for unpacking some of my painful memories and some of the messages that I send myself and some of those shadow sides of me. And what I've seen is self-compassion can be the strength that I need to work through some of those internal battles that I go through, some of those insecurities, some of that internal pain and strife that I experience from day to day. What's been your experience with that, Kathy?
Yeah, so it's just this same saying that we have that you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. If you think about, an emergency situation on the plane, and you have a
Mm-hmm.
child next to you, how are you going to help, or an elderly person, what person you're caring for, how are you going to help them if you can't breathe yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we
Yeah.
turn the self-compassion back to ourselves first,
Mm-hmm.
then what we're do is we're acknowledging what we need in order to help others. And so
Totally.
being kind to ourselves isn't weak, it's actually smart and strong.
That's right. And you mentioned about like emergency situations. As a first responder, we're told and taught to put that oxygen mask on ourselves first so that we become useful to care for other
Hmm.
people. And that's so true when you're working as a first responder, is that you can only care for others to the extent at which you're caring for yourself.
Hmm.
And if you are saying to others, be good to yourself, take care of yourself, you're trying to bring wellness and wholeness to other people, you only know if that's possible if you're doing it in your own life. And I've been convicted by that in the many years I've been in this work. You have to be caring for yourself to know that it's possible to take care of yourself when you're encouraging others to do the same.
Yes, exactly. And that leads us to our third myth, and it's very related, is that self-compassion is selfish.
Mm-hmm.
People often worry that if they focus on caring for themselves, then they're going to stop caring for others. And
Yeah.
it will just become like this self-focused venture. Self-compassion will become very
Yeah.
selfish.
Yeah.
But what has been your experience with this?
The reality is, compassion is not a limited resource. When we are good to ourselves, we actually have more energy, more internal resources to love and to support other people. And that has been true in my work, where when I'm exhausted, when I am fed up, when I am frustrated, I'm not as useful as when I arrive to work with a full cup and when I'm rested and when I've taken care of myself. It makes me better able to care for other people too.
Yes, I love Kristen's quote here about this. She says, "The more compassion that flows inward, the more resources we have available to be there for
That's
others."
exactly right.
Yeah, self-compassion has this multiplying effect of it's like a compounding interest of investing in ourselves and then multiplying and then being able to share with others. Because if you think about what you said earlier, if we're only able to give grace, empathy, kindness, compassion to others at the extent that we're giving it to ourselves, some of us may look at the investment in ourselves and say, don't have much to give.
Yeah, that's exactly right. A model that I carry with me in my work is that you can't give what you don't have. And so in order to give grace to others, you have to extend it to yourself first. In order to offer support to other people, you have to take that help for yourself. And this is supported in the research, not just for caring for strangers or for community members who may be in need. This is also true in intimate relationships as well. When you are more loving, more caring for yourself, it makes you better able to love and care for the people that you're in relationship with in your personal life. And that leads us to our final myth here. Self-compassion is the same as self-esteem. This is an interesting one because self-esteem isn't necessarily a negative thing. So can you help us unpack this one?
Sometimes these two words are conflated, self-esteem and self-compassion, but they're actually quite different. Self-esteem often depends on feeling special or being better than others, and it goes up when we succeed, but it crashes when we fall or fail.
Oh, interesting.
Self-compassion, on the other hand, isn't about being better than anyone. It's about accepting ourselves as we are, imperfect and human, no matter what.
Oh, wow. That's so good. I really appreciate that. And I would say that that's true in my life now. There are days when I am feeling on a high of how valuable I feel and how grateful I am, and then days where I feel like I crash and burn. And so perhaps I'm relying more on self-esteem than I am on self-compassion. What a great reminder. Yeah, and Kristin Neff on this topic says, with self-compassion, we don't need to be perfect or better than anyone else to feel good about ourselves. What a great reminder.
Yeah, I love that. It's so much more freeing and sustainable, right, than chasing constant approval.
Yeah, exactly. I am guilty of that, that's for sure, seeking external approval. So as we reflect back on what we discussed today, self-compassion is not self-pity. It is not weakness or selfishness or just another version of self-esteem. It's something much bigger and stronger.
Yes, and practicing self-compassion actually builds true resilience, connection, and worth. And so we encourage you to think about which myths resonate with you and maybe take one small step of showing yourself some self-compassion as a result. And to close our time together, I'm going to end with a poem by John Donahue. And this is titled, For One Who Is Exhausted. You have traveled too fast over false ground. Now your soul has come to take you back. Take refuge in your senses. Open up to all the small miracles you rushed through. Become inclined to watch the way of rain when it falls slow and free. Imitate the habit of twilight, taking time to open the well of color that fostered the brightness of day. Draw alongside the silence of stone until its calmness can claim you. Be excessively gentle with yourself.